Clara stared out at the still waters of Lake Serenity. The early morning mist clung to the surface, making the far shore disappear into a gauzy gray. She sipped her coffee, the warmth a welcome contrast to the cool air seeping through the old window panes of the lakeside cabin. This wasn't just a cabin, though. It was Heron's Rest, and it was home. She'd bought it from her parents a few years back. Not because she needed a place to live, exactly. As a successful wedding planner in the city, she could easily afford a swanky apartment with all the bells and whistles. But Heron's Rest held something more. It held memories. Memories of sun-drenched summers spent with her grandparents, fishing off the rickety dock, learning to skip stones, and listening to Grandpa George's tall tales. She used the cabin as an escape from the city and the constant pressure to plan perfect days for everyone else. The cabin was rustic, charmingly so. It was built of sturdy, dark wood, smelling perpetually of pine and aged varnish. Inside, the rooms were cozy, with a large stone fireplace dominating the living room. She'd kept most of the original furniture, adding only a few modern touches for comfort. A gentle nudge against her leg broke her reverie. Willow, her golden retriever, looked up at her with adoring eyes, her tail thumping softly against the wooden floor. "Morning, girl," Clara murmured, scratching behind her ears. "Ready for a walk?" Willow barked softly in response, her enthusiasm palpable. She finished her coffee, grabbed her jacket, and headed out, the familiar crunch of gravel underfoot a comforting sound. Lake Serenity was waking up. The mist was beginning to dissipate, revealing the verdant hills surrounding the lake. A lone loon called out, its haunting cry echoing across the water. Clara breathed deeply, filling her lungs with the crisp, clean air. Life was good. As they walked, Clara thought about her younger brother Ethan. Ethan's wedding was coming up in December, a low-key affair planned in their parents' backyard. She was a bridesmaid, a role she was happy to play. Ethan had always been the quiet one, content to stay out of the spotlight. A stark contrast to her own, more outgoing nature. Clara loved him, of course, but their relationship had always been, well, a little one-sided. She always felt like she needed to be a big sister, protecting him and guiding him. She was happy for him, genuinely so, but a part of her couldn't help but feel a twinge of worry. Was he ready for marriage? Was his fiancée, Olivia, right for him? She shook her head, pushing the thoughts aside. It was Ethan's time to shine. She would be there for him, as a sister should. Later that day, Ethan called. Clara was working on a seating chart for a particularly demanding bride, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Clara. How are you?" Ethan's voice was hesitant. "I'm good, Ethan. Just wedding planning madness." "What's up?" "So, about the wedding, Olivia and I were talking about our honeymoon. And we had an idea. I just wanted to run it by you first." Clara braced herself. "Okay, shoot." "Well, we were thinking, Heron's Rest." Clara blinked. "Heron's Rest? You want to spend your honeymoon here?" "Yeah. Isn't it perfect? It's secluded, romantic, and it holds so many special memories for our family. Remember all those summers with Grandma and Grandpa?" Clara did remember. Fondly. But that didn't mean she wanted her little brother and his new wife canoodling in her house for 2 weeks. Especially after planning everyone else's honeymoons and weddings. "Ethan, I don't know, that's my house, you know? It's my escape. But it's just for 2 weeks. And Mom and Dad said it would be fine. They think it's a wonderful idea." "Mom and Dad don't live here, Ethan." "I do. And I wasn't consulted about this." She tried to keep her voice calm, but she could feel her frustration rising. "But Clara, please. It would mean so much to me. We want some private time, just the two of us. We don't want to be surrounded by people at some stuffy resort. There are plenty of other secluded, romantic places you could go," Clara pointed out. "I plan honeymoons for a living. Why does it have to be here?" "Because it's special. And because, well, to be honest, we are on a bit of a budget. Having the wedding in Mom and Dad's backyard is already saving us a ton, and you always say how you don't use the lake house much in the winter. Ethan admitted, his voice softening. Clara sighed. She knew that weddings were expensive, even low-key ones, but this still felt wrong. It was her sanctuary. Ethan, I appreciate that, but I'm not comfortable with it. It's my home. It's where I come to relax. I need my space. But we'll be out of your way. We'll just relax, go for walks, maybe do some fishing. We won't bother you. It's not about bothering me, Ethan. It's about privacy. Mine. And the fact that she didn't want to think about her brother's first marital relations in her childhood vacation home. You're being so selfish, Clara. This is my honeymoon. It's supposed to be the most magical time of my life, and you're trying to ruin it. Ethan's voice was rising, the sweetness gone, replaced by a sharp edge. I'm not trying to ruin anything, Ethan. I'm just saying no to something I'm not comfortable with. It's my house. Fine. If that's how you feel, then maybe you shouldn't even come to the wedding. Ethan slammed the phone down, leaving Clara staring at the receiver in disbelief. She put the phone down slowly, her mind reeling. Was she being unreasonable? Was she being selfish? She didn't think so. It was her house. She had a right to say who stayed there. She ran a hand through her hair, feeling the familiar weight of family expectations pressing down on her. She knew that her parents would be furious. They always took Ethan's side, no matter what. She braced herself for the inevitable barrage of phone calls and guilt trips. She looked at Willow, who was watching her with concerned eyes. She knelt down and hugged her tightly. It's okay, girl, she murmured. Everything's going to be okay. But deep down, she wasn't so sure. The phone rang almost immediately. It was her mother. Clara, what did you say to your brother? Her voice was tight with anger. I told him I didn't want him and Olivia spending their honeymoon at Heron's Rest. And why not? It's just for 2 weeks. Because it's my house, Mom. I need to get away from work. It's not a bed and breakfast for Ethan and Olivia to use whenever they feel like it. Don't be ridiculous, Clara. Your brother is getting married. You should be happy for him, not making things difficult. I am happy for him, Mom. But that doesn't mean I have to sacrifice my own peace and quiet to make him happy. You're being so difficult, Clara. Why can't you just do this for your brother? It's his honeymoon. Why can't he just respect my boundaries? Clara retorted, her voice rising. Don't talk to me like that, Clara. You need to think about what's important here. Your brother is getting married. This is a special time for him. You should be supporting him, not making things more difficult. And what about me, Mom? Don't I deserve to have my feelings considered? Don't I deserve to have my privacy respected? Her mother sighed heavily. You're being so selfish, Clara. I can't believe you're acting this way. Ethan is devastated. He was so excited about spending his honeymoon at the lake house, and now you've ruined everything. I haven't ruined anything, Mom. I've just said no to something I'm not comfortable with. You're going to regret this, Clara. You're going to regret ruining your brother's honeymoon. You're going to regret alienating your family. Maybe, Clara said quietly. But I have to do what I think is right. Her mother hung up without saying goodbye. Clara stared at the phone, feeling a familiar ache in her chest. She hated arguing with her parents. She hated disappointing them. But she couldn't back down. She had to stand her ground. She knew that her father would call soon. And she knew that the conversation would be even worse. She decided to act first. Taking a deep breath, she typed out a quick text to Ethan. You're out of the wedding party. I need people who support me, not make my life harder. Then, she blocked his number. The relief didn't come. only more stress as she realized she had to find a replacement bridesmaid and redo all the seating charts. Amelia, Clara's best friend since college, found her surrounded by seating charts, looking like she was about to burst into tears. Amelia worked as a floral designer and the two women often collaborated on high-profile weddings. Amelia had a knack for diffusing tense situations, her easygoing nature a perfect counterpoint to Clara's driven personality. "Honey, what is going on here? It looks like a seating chart exploded," Amelia said, gently pushing aside a stack of place cards. Clara sighed, running a hand through her already disheveled hair. "Ethan wants to have his honeymoon at Heron's Rest. I said no, and now everyone is furious with me." Amelia's eyebrows rose. "He wants to spend his honeymoon at your lake house? Seriously?" Clara nodded, her eyes welling up. "He said it would be romantic and secluded and special. He said they're on a tight budget and Mom and Dad are already letting them have the wedding in their backyard." "Okay, first of all, you are a wedding planner. You plan romantic and secluded for a living. If he's really on a tight budget, he can ask you for some tips. Second, it's your lake house. You go there to escape the city and the stress of your job. It's your sanctuary. They can't just expect to invade your personal space." I know," Clara said, sniffling. "But he's my brother. And Mom and Dad are putting so much pressure on me. They're making me feel like I'm being selfish and unreasonable." "You're not being selfish, Clara. You're being sensible. You have every right to say no. And honestly, they should be respecting your boundaries. He's also now not in the wedding party," Clara admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I texted him that I only wanted people who supported me and then blocked his number." Amelia's jaw dropped. "Clara, you blocked your own brother from your wedding? That's a little extreme, don't you think? I was just so angry. He called me selfish and kept going on about how his honeymoon was supposed to be the most magical time of his life. It felt like he was completely invalidating my feelings." "Okay, I get it. You're stressed. But blocking him is not the answer. You need to talk to him, Clara. Explain how you feel. Maybe you can find a compromise." Clara shook her head. "I don't know, Amelia. I'm just so tired of always having to be the responsible one, the one who always gives in. I just want to say no for once, and have everyone respect that." Amelia sat down next to her and took her hand. "I understand, honey. But sometimes, the responsible thing to do is to communicate. Maybe Ethan doesn't realize how much Heron's Rest means to you. Maybe he thinks you're being unreasonable because you're not explaining yourself properly." "Maybe," Clara said, doubt in her voice. "Look, I know you're under a lot of pressure right now. But you can't let this escalate. Talk to Ethan. Unblock his number. Tell him how you feel. And if he still insists on having his honeymoon at your lake house, then at least you'll know you tried to reason with him." Clara sighed. Amelia was right. As usual. Reluctantly, Clara unblocked Ethan's number. A flood of messages immediately came through, most of them angry and accusatory. She closed her eyes, bracing herself for the onslaught. She decided to ignore the messages for now. She needed to gather her thoughts and compose herself before responding. She took a deep breath and typed out a short message. "Ethan, can we talk? Can you come over to my place tomorrow?" A few minutes later, she received a reply. "Fine. But I'm still angry." Clara sighed. This wasn't going to be easy. The next day, Ethan arrived at Clara's apartment, his expression grim. He looked younger than he was, dressed in ripped jeans and a faded t-shirt. She was so used to seeing him in dressier clothing for other people's events. "Come in," Clara said, trying to sound calm. Ethan stepped inside, looking around the impeccably decorated apartment with a critical eye. Clara knew he didn't approve of her fancy lifestyle. "So," Ethan said, crossing his arms. What did you want to talk about? About Heron's Rest, Clara said, her voice trembling slightly. And about the wedding. What about them? Ethan, I'm sorry, Clara said, taking a deep breath. I was wrong to block your number and kick you out of the wedding party. That was a rash decision, and I regret it. Ethan's expression softened slightly. Really? Yes, really. I was just feeling overwhelmed, and I reacted poorly. I still want you to be in my wedding. Okay, Ethan said, I can agree to that. But I still want to talk about the honeymoon. I understand, Clara said. But first, I need you to understand how much Heron's Rest means to me. It's my sanctuary, my escape from the city. It's where I go to recharge and relax. I don't want to have to share that space with anyone, especially not during my vacation. I get that, Ethan said. But Olivia and I are really on a budget, and we just thought it would be perfect. I know, Clara said. And I appreciate that you asked me first. But the answer is still no. I'm just not comfortable with it. Ethan sighed. So, what are we supposed to do? We can't afford a fancy hotel or resort. Clara thought for a moment. Tell you what? She said. I know a few cute bed and breakfasts near the lake that are surprisingly affordable, especially in the off-season. I can call them for you, maybe even get you a discount. How about that? Ethan considered her offer. It wasn't Heron's Rest, but it was a compromise. And it would save him and Olivia a lot of money. Okay, Ethan said finally. I can agree to that. Clara smiled. Great, she said. Now, about the wedding. Over the next few weeks, Clara and Ethan worked on rebuilding their relationship. It wasn't easy. There were still some lingering resentments and misunderstandings. But they were both determined to make things work. Clara called the bed and breakfasts near Lake Serenity and managed to secure a hefty discount for Ethan and Olivia. She even helped them plan a few romantic activities for their honeymoon, making sure it would be just as special as they had hoped. Ethan, in turn, started to be more understanding of Clara's demanding job and the pressure she was under. He even offered to help her with some of the wedding planning tasks, much to her surprise. As the wedding day approached, Clara started to feel a sense of optimism. Maybe, just maybe, things were finally going to be okay. That is, until her parents dropped another bombshell. Clara, darling, her mother said sweetly over the phone. We've been thinking, since you're now letting Ethan and Olivia have their honeymoon at a bed and breakfast, we think it's only fair that we get to have our anniversary celebration at Heron's Rest. Clara's heart sank. Mom, you know that's my getaway. It is so busy in the wedding industry, I really need that space. Please just celebrate at home. Her mother's voice took a sharp edge. Well, if you want to be difficult about everything, why don't we just move the wedding somewhere else, where we don't have to deal with you trying to ruin everything? Clara felt tears well up in her eyes. She couldn't win. Clara gripped the phone, her knuckles white. Mom, please don't do this, she pleaded. Ethan and Olivia's wedding is important to me. I'm trying to make things work. Why are you doing this? We just want to celebrate our anniversary, darling, her mother said, her voice saccharine sweet again. And Heron's Rest is such a beautiful place. It would be perfect. But Mom, I need that space, Clara repeated, her voice cracking. I need it for myself. Can't you understand that? Oh, Clara, don't be so dramatic. It's just for a few days. We wouldn't bother you. You always bother me, Mom. You always expect me to give in, to sacrifice my own needs for everyone else. I'm tired of it. Don't talk to your mother like that, Clara. Her father's voice boomed from the background. Well, maybe if you both started listening to me for once, I wouldn't have to talk to you like this, Clara retorted, her voice rising. That's enough, Clara, her father yelled. Either you let us have our anniversary celebration at Heron's Rest, or we move Ethan and Olivia's wedding to a venue. Is that what you want? To ruin your own brother's wedding? Clara's breath hitched. They were blackmailing her. Again. That's not fair. She whispered. Life isn't fair, darling. Her mother said. Now, what's it going to be? Clara closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. She felt trapped, suffocated by her parents' demands. She wanted to scream, to lash out, but she knew it would only make things worse. Fine. She said, her voice barely audible. You can have Heron's Rest. Wonderful, darling. Her mother chirped. We knew you'd see things our way. Clara hung up the phone, slamming it down on the table. She burst into tears, sobbing uncontrollably. Amelia, who had been listening from the other room, rushed to her side, wrapping her arms around her. Clara, what happened? What did they say? Clara buried her face in Amelia's shoulder, shaking her head. They're blackmailing me, Amelia. They're threatening to move Ethan and Olivia's wedding if I don't let them have their anniversary celebration at Heron's Rest. Amelia's eyes widened. That's awful, Clara. They can't do that. They just did. Clara said, her voice muffled. And I gave in. I always give in. Oh, honey. Amelia said, stroking her hair. I'm so sorry. They're putting you in an impossible situation. I don't know what to do anymore, Amelia. Clara sobbed. I'm so tired of fighting them. I just want everyone to be happy. I know, honey. Amelia said. But you can't keep sacrificing yourself for everyone else. You deserve to be happy too. You need to start standing up for yourself. How? Clara asked, her voice desperate. How can I stand up to them when they always have so much power over me? Amelia thought for a moment. Maybe you need to change the rules of the game. She said. What do you mean? Maybe you need to show them that you're not the pushover they think you are. Maybe you need to tell them the truth. The truth? Clara asked, confused. What truth? The truth about Heron's Rest. Amelia said, her voice low. The truth about how you really bought the house and the reason why. Clara stared at Amelia, her mind racing. But Ethan doesn't know. She said. I never told him. I think it's time you did. Amelia said. It's time he knew the sacrifices you've made for him. Maybe then he'll understand why you're so protective of Heron's Rest. Clara hesitated. Telling Ethan the truth would be risky. It could ruin their newly rebuilt relationship. But it might also be the only way to save herself. The next day, Clara nervously called Ethan. Can you come over to my place again? She asked, her voice trembling. I need to tell you something. Ethan, sensing her distress, immediately agreed. He arrived at her apartment within the hour, his expression concerned. What's wrong, Clara? He asked, taking her hands in his. Clara took a deep breath, steeling herself for what she was about to say. Ethan, there's something I need to tell you about Heron's Rest. She began. Something I've been hiding from you for a long time. Ethan looked at her, puzzled. What is it? Heron's Rest, I bought it from Mom and Dad. Clara said, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan's eyes widened in shock. What? You bought it? But, I thought. I know what you thought. Clara said, interrupting him. Mom and Dad told you they were letting you live there rent-free, as a way of helping you out. Ethan nodded, his face pale. Yeah, that's what they said. Well, it's not true, Clara said. I bought the house from them a few years ago. But why? Ethan asked, his voice trembling. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was afraid. Clara said, tears welling up in her eyes. I was afraid you'd feel guilty. I was afraid you'd feel like you owed me something. But Clara. There's more, Ethan. Clara said, interrupting him again. The reason Mom and Dad sold me the house, it was to pay for your college tuition. Ethan's jaw dropped. He stared at Clara in disbelief. What? But, I thought I had a scholarship. He stammered. You did. Clara said. But it only covered part of your tuition. Mom and Dad couldn't afford to pay the rest. So, they sold me Heron's Rest. Ethan sank into a chair, his head spinning. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Everything he thought he knew about his life had just been turned upside down. Why didn't they tell me? He asked, his voice barely audible. Why didn't they just let me get student loans? They didn't want you to be burdened with debt. Clara said. They wanted you to have a good start in life. They thought they were doing what was best for you. But they lied to me. Ethan said, his voice rising. They kept this secret from me for years. I can't believe they would do that. I know. Clara said, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, Ethan. I should have told you sooner. But I was afraid of what you'd think. I don't know what to think. Ethan said, shaking his head. I feel like my whole life has been a lie. I know. Clara said. But it's not a lie, Ethan. You've worked hard, you've achieved so much. You deserve all the success you've had. But it's all built on a foundation of lies. Ethan said, his voice raw with emotion. I can't believe I didn't know. I know. Clara said, reaching out to take his hand. But you know now. And now we can start to build a new foundation, one based on honesty and trust. Ethan looked at her, his eyes filled with pain and confusion. What do I do now, Clara? He asked. I don't know, Ethan. Clara said. But I'm here for you. Whatever you need, I'm here. Ethan stood and began to pace. But then why are they trying to use the lake house now? He asked, more to himself than Clara. Because I told them no. Clara said. I said no to letting them have their anniversary there. But they said, I don't understand. Ethan said. They just keep trying to manipulate you, Clara. When is it enough? Clara shook her head, crying again. I don't know, Ethan. I really don't. But you are my sister, and I don't want to be party to them constantly running your life. You are successful. You have made so many other people's lives better with your wedding planning. It is time for you to put yourself first. Ethan said. Clara looked up at him, a small smile on her face. But how? If I say no, what will happen? Ethan looked at her, and this time his eyes were determined. If they move the wedding to a venue, then they will pay for it. The way they paid for my college. I am done being manipulated and guilt. Clara's eyes widened. Really? She said, tears running down her face. Really? Ethan said, pulling her into a hug. Let's do it together. We have to support each other. Ethan pulled out his phone and called their parents. He put the phone on speaker so Clara could hear. Mom, Dad, Ethan here. He said sternly. I just want you to know that whatever decisions Clara makes about the wedding are what is going to happen. If you can't respect that, then I am happy to get married at a venue, but you will be paying for all of it. Just like you used to pay for my college. You don't get to hold her hostage anymore. We are done. Their parents were speechless. After a long silence, their mother finally spoke. We just want what is best. What is best is whatever Clara wants. You should be supporting her. So either respect her wishes or pay for the wedding somewhere else, the decision is yours. Ethan said before hanging up the phone. Clara looked at Ethan, her face filled with shock. You did that for me? Ethan hugged her tightly. I should have done it a long time ago. Clara smiled. So what do we do now? Now you tell your parents no. We will have the wedding in the backyard if they can act civil, but if not, we will have it elsewhere, and they are not invited to complain since they are paying for it," Ethan said. "Then you are going to take a vacation at that lake house." Clara called her parents and, for the first time in her life, stood firm. She told them they would not be having their anniversary celebration at Heron's Rest, and if they moved the wedding, they would pay for it. To her surprise, they didn't argue. The tone in Ethan's voice and the change in their relationship had finally made the situation sink in. They apologized, although somewhat insincerely, and promised to behave themselves. The wedding proceeded as planned. As for Clara, she made sure that the anniversary celebration was not a fun experience. Ethan and Olivia went back to the city for a few days to give her space, and she finally had time to breathe. She sat on the dock, watching the sunset over Lake Serenity. She had faced a difficult challenge, but she had emerged stronger and more resilient. She had learned the importance of standing up for herself, of protecting her boundaries, and of valuing her own happiness. She had also learned the importance of forgiveness, of compassion, and of family. She knew that her relationship with Ethan and her parents would never be the same, but she was hopeful that they could find a way to move forward, to learn from their mistakes, and to build a stronger and more loving bond.